Can you see my screen okay? I'm going to need somebody to use their words because I can't see you when I present.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. So I'm just going to start from the beginning here and gloss over the stuff we already did. And holler if you had a question about something. Again, I can't see you, so use your words. All right. So remember, the 4 things that makes an animal is being multicellular, heterotrophy, sexual reproduction, and movement. Any questions about those?
No.
Oh, okay. All right, the first animal came from colonial protists, so these are single-cell organisms. They grouped together, and then eventually they started specializing. The outside ones got food, the insides processed the food, and they all stopped being able to live outside of each other, and so they needed to work. And there are 11 different phyla. 10 of them are invertebrates, 1 of them are vertebrates, and that's what we're going to talk about today. There's a phylogenetic tree we'll talk about more today. There are 3 types of symmetry. Radial, which is going to be your sea squirts, bilateral, which is going to be most animals, and asymmetrical, which is going to be your sponges. So this one is radial. This one is asymmetry. This one is bilateral symmetry. Look at the cute monkey. Sorry. All right, and then we had the dorsal, which is the back. And in this class, we're talking 4-legged animals. So if I use this frog, here's dorsal. And ventral is going to be the belly side, so this side. Anterior and posterior. And cephalization is having a distinct head. In every animal I pictured here, you can see a distinct head. This slug or snail at the bottom here has less cephalization, but you can still tell where its head is, so it has some cephalization. All right, now new stuff, germ layers. Germ layers are fundamental tissue types that all animals come from. There are 3 kinds: ectoderm, mesoderm, endoderm. And everything in an animal's body comes from it. Organs, skin, toenails, claws, fur, whatever. All of that comes from these germ layers. Sponges have no true tissues. They just have the same cell kind of over and over again. They have multicellularity, but they don't have much in the way of specialization at all. Honestly, sponges, I think someday they're going to end up being a whole lot like Pluto was as a planet. You know, when we called it a planet in the first place, we're like, well, there's a lot about Pluto that doesn't fit. It doesn't quite work. But we kept it as a planet because it was the best. And then eventually they came up with a new designation of the dwarf planet, and Pluto got kicked out. I think this is going to happen to sponges someday. Sponges don't fit into animals great, but they fit there better tthan anywhere else. So I think someday they're going to get their own classification, but we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. Cnidarians and ctenophores, which are your jellyfish and sea squirts, they're going to have 2 germ layers, and every other animal has 3 germ layers. So what happens is an egg and a sperm come together and make a zygote. That's old news. You all know that. Then that egg and sperm zygote split, and you have 2 identical cells. And then split, and you have 4 identical cells, and they split, and you have 8 identical cells, and they keep splitting. When they get to about 16 identical cells, they become like a hollow ball. Kind of looks like a raspberry. That's called a blastocyst. And as it continues to divide and make more cells, it eventually becomes a gastrula. And we'll learn more about this when we talk cells later. But if you can see here, this teal greenish color, light blue, is the ectoderm. And right now it is right here. It's just starting to grow. The ectoderm is going to turn into the skin, the neurons, and the pigments of your skin. So that is there, and ecto is outermost. Right now it's not on the outermost because it's still growing. These are where the egg and sperm are, like right here in this part. The mesoderm is this green, and that's going to turn into your muscles, your blood, and all different bones, everything like that that's kind of middle, and that's going to be here. Right now you see a whole lot of mesoderm, and it looks like it's on the outside. It won't stay that way. And then the yellow or tan color here is the endoderm, and that's going to turn into a lot of your digestive organs, lung cells, things like that. So what's going to happen is eventually this ectoderm is going to keep growing and it's going to encircle the mesoderm and it's going to be all the way on the outside. Any questions on germ layers?
Could you go back to that last slide for just a sec?
Sure.
All right.
All right. Anybody else need a minute? Are we good? Okay. All right. The next thing that classifies animals is body cavity. Okay, so body cavity is a fluid-filled space that forms between the digestive tract and the outer wall of the body. It's this fluid-filled center. It's also known as a coelom, and I'll show you that word in a minute. There are three major functions. It acts as a firm structure for an animal, for the muscles to push against, and that's what allows me to be able to bend forward to do a crunch. Those muscles need something to push on to allow you to bring you forward, and so they push on that fluid-filled cavity because there's no bones there. Here it's bones, but here in the abdomen portion, that's going to be that fluid-filled cavity. It allows for freer movement around your organs. Okay, so picture a straw, which is empty in the center. Oh wait, I have a straw. Straw. If I bend it, it makes a sharp bend, right? That bend, if we didn't have the body cavity, when we bent, we would be crushing all of our internal organs. The ribs would poke into our intestines and would poke into our kidneys, and it would just all kind of cut off and get damaged. But because we have that fluid-filled body cavity, we can move without anything getting crushed. So that's a main portion of it. And then the last thing is it acts as a reservoir for nutrients and waste to diffuse in and out of the animal's body. So as you eat, some of those nutrients are going to diffuse from the blood and into the body cavity, and they're just going to stay there until you need them. So it's just a way of holding on to some of those more important nutrients. Okay. Any questions on body cavity? I'll show a picture on the next slide. I'm mostly just waiting to make sure you all have time to write. Okay. Good? Okay. All right, so here, there are three kinds of having a body cavity or not having a body cavity. The top one is acoelomate. A, whenever you see A in front of anything, it probably is saying without. And coelomate is an animal without a body cavity, or a body cavity. So this is an animal without a body cavity. You can see you have your germ layers. There's the ectoderm, which is the gray on the outside. You have the endoderm, which is the gut. And then the acoelomates have nothing but full mesoderm. There's no fluid. It's all tissue filled in the center. These are going to be your flatworms, your planarians. So that's an acoelomate, no body cavity, no fluid-filled center. The next one is pseudocoelomate. Pseudo means false. So this is a false body cavity. You still have your ectoderm, the gray. You still have your endoderm, the orange. You still have the mesoderm, the green. However, what you don't have is you don't have the green lining the endoderm and lining the mesodermal organs. So to have a true body cavity, it needs to be fully lined by mesoderm. So the fluid is only touching mesoderm. In this case, the fluid is touching the mesoderm, endoderm, and mesodermal organ. So it is not, that's why it's called a false body cavity. There's a cavity there. It has fluid in it. It's just not fully lined by mesoderm. And then the last one, every time I try to move this, it goes down too low. The last one is a true coelomate. So you might see eucoelomate, or you might just see coelomate. Both are correct, just depending on where you see it from. So coelomates have a true body cavity. Again, ectoderm is the gray, endoderm is the orange, mesoderm is the green, and you notice in this one, the mesoderm surrounds that. So this is a true body cavity. This is what we have. Any questions? Okay. So using body cavity, symmetry, germ layers, we help construct the phylogenetic tree. So here are protists. This is what animals probably came from. So everything above this line is going to be an animal, right above the word protist. Sponges have no true tissues, limited multicellularity, and asymmetry. So everything above this line has got some sort of symmetry and true tissues. Cnidarians and ctenophores have two true tissues, radial symmetry. So everything above them has three true tissues and bilateral symmetry. Flatworms have three true tissues but no body cavity, so they are acoelomates. Your rotifers and roundworms have the pseudocoelomate, and everything else has the true body cavity of coelomate. And if two things are close to each other on the tree, they are more closely related. Everything on this tree except for chordates are invertebrates. They do not have a backbone. So all of this have no backbone. This is what branch we're on, a chordate. Look, that doesn't even look like us, but this is our branch. Notice that our closest relative, echinoderms, starfish. Isn't that crazy? They're our closest relative. All right. So sponges, just to repeat what I already said, they have limited multicellularity. They have the same cell kind of copied over and over again, but not a ton. They don't have specialization very much, sometimes a little bit, but not much. No organized body shape, so they have asymmetry, and no true tissues. And I'll pause. Okay, does anybody need more time on this slide? Okay. Your jellyfish and sea squirts or anemones are going to have your true two tissues, two layers. So they have ectoderm and endoderm, no mesoderm, and they have radial symmetry. And then everything else has three true tissues, endoderm, ectoderm, mesoderm. They have bilateral symmetry. Even roundworms, annelids, they really have bilateral symmetry. And then they have all three types of body cavities. They have no body cavity, acoelomate, false body cavity, roundworms, pseudocoelomates, and they have true body cavities, the coelomates, sorry. Okay. Pausing. Do you need a minute? Are you good? Okay. Now, invertebrates. Invertebrates are 10 of the 11 phyla. Most animals fit into an invertebrate group. The only thing they have in common is that they lack the backbone. They are a very heterogeneous group. Hetero refers to different. Genius, genes. So different genes. You can remember hetero, so if you are heterosexual, you like somebody of a different sex. And if you are homosexual, you like somebody of the same sex. Homo means same, hetero means different. That's all those terms mean. So this is a very different group. Each thing has way different types of digestion and locomotion and body cavities and everything. And most of the animals in our world do fit into the invertebrates, but the only thing they have in common is no backbone. And that's because as humans, we like things, we're kind of egocentric, and we look at things that kind of look like us, so we tend to only think of the vertebrates when we think animals. So the last one is chordates. Chordates are the 11th phylum. Now, vertebrates are in chordates, but not all chordates are actually vertebrates. There's some chordates that stop and only have these four things. Anything with vertebrates has these four things at some point in time, but they don't have it now. You are a vertebrate. Okay, and to be a chordate, you have to have a notochord, pharyngeal pouches, dorsal nerve cord, or a post-anal tail. Do you have any of those things?
All right now.
No, not at all. You're not walking around going, oh, my notochord hurts. What you did about 2 to 4-ish weeks in your mom's belly, you kind of look like a fish. In fact, every vertebrate at some point in time in fetal development looked like a fish. We all kind of looked the same when we had all this stuff going on. The notochord is a firm, flexible rod of tissue in the dorsal part of the body, the backside. The pharyngeal pouches is a small outpocketing of the digestive tract. It can also be pharyngeal slits, which are going to be slits on the digestive tract. The dorsal nerve cord is a hollow tube above the notochord. And the postanal tail is a muscular tail that extends beyond the anus. And I'm going to show a picture in a second, but I'll give you a second to write these down. You will be asked the 4 characteristics of chordates more than once. Okay. So here's a general picture. At some point in time in development, y'all looked like this. You had the dorsal hollow nerve cord, which eventually turned into your spinal cord, this blue. You had the notochord, which eventually turned into your spine, your vertebrae. You had your pharyngeal slits or pouches, which eventually turned into your lungs or fish's gills. And you have a post-anal tail. It had a post-anal tail. So here's the anus. Notice the tail extends past the anus. So at some point in time that happened, but what really ended up occurring is that your body elongated, the anus became down here, and now your tailbone ends before your anus happens, right? Now cats and dogs, they still have a post-anal tail, but we do not humans. So those are the 4 things all chordates have at some point in time in development. Yeah, that's what I thought. So that's where I'm going to stop today. What we need to remember, we talked about the true tissues, the germ layers, so ectoderm, endoderm, mesoderm. Sponges don't have any. Cnidarians and ctenophores have 2. Everything else has the 3. We talked body cavity, which has the fully lined mesoderm fluid-filled cavity for a coelomate. And those are going to be everything that's not cnidarians and ctenophores and below. We talked about flatworms, not cnidarians and ctenophores, sorry, roundworms and rotifers. Sorry, guys. We talked about the ones that have a pseudocoelomate, the rotifers and roundworms. They have the false body cavity, so not fully lined by mesoderm. And we talked about the fact that flatworms have no body cavity. And then we talked about the 4 things that makes the chordate a chordate. So that's it. Any questions? Okay. Stopping sharing. And wait for it. Slow computer. You can do your job. There you go. And I'm going to go ahead and stop recording. Maybe.